Conversating? Conversating with Pops and Ade.
Yep, conversating with Pops and Ade.
Well, I'm Peter J. Harris.
And I'm Adenike A. Harris, and this is Conversating with Pops and Ade.
Conversating with Pops and Ade.
Let's go.
Let's get started.
Hey there, and welcome back to Conversating with Pops and Ade. I am Adenike A. Harris.
And I am Peter J. Harris. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, are we hyped. We are so hyped.
I'm so excited.
I'm not going to read you his whole bio. This is Dr. Thomas A. Gordon is our guest. Educator, consultant,
psychologist,
put people
mentor,
through colleges. He's done it all. Great family man, a true citizen of his community, the cultural community, as well as the world, a world citizen. And hopefully we'll get into some of that. But so let's just get down, because let's welcome Dr. Thomas A. Gordon, and we'll put his super duper bio up some other time. Doc, are you there?
Glad to be with you. Thank you, family.
Okay, there he is. There he is.
Appreciate the invitation, and looking forward to May All Be Fed.
Yes. We already get started. I'm so excited. I can't stop smiling. Then he come in here with the fly vest on, with the
fly vest. Shoot.
Well, this vest comes from one of our cousins in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
It was close to that famous waterfall, Mosi Owatunwa.
Smoke that thunders.
Smoke that thunders. Yeah. So everybody doesn't know that, and I wanted all of us to be fed, including those people who may get a chance to share and listen to our conversation. That we're coming, and we're coming, and we're bringing the roots today. We're gonna bring the roots with the dust and the blood and the sweat and everything. We're not just coming with branches and fruit.
Right.
We're gonna bring it all. And thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
Always glad to be with y'all.
Yo, same here, man. I'm so excited. Like my cheeks hurt. I'm gritting so hard. Like, yo, we got a powerful guest today.
What's our topic though? Let's make sure we
our
get
topic
that on
today.
On
so
the
this
tape.
is the topic that we are going to be conversating about today. The topic is reclaiming voice and speaking tenderness. So reclaiming voice is something that I talked a lot about when I was in grad school. I actually named my master's thesis about it. Reclaiming voice, reclaiming my father was the name of my master's thesis. And I believe it's been a through line for me as a coach, as a woman, just the power of reclaiming voice. So that I will be talking about that. And Pops, speaking tenderness is something that you have begun to talk more about publicly. And so give us a little tidbit about what that is for you.
For me, I'm just taking the term baby talk and shaping it and shifting it, because I really am interested in how we speak tenderly to each other, particularly and I mean a politicized tenderness. So maybe we don't agree to everything, but I want to make sure we still have that ethical tenderness to make sure that we don't hurt each other indiscriminately. So even in a disagreement, but it's a lot of all that. And, this is the kind we just want you to just wade in, sir, wade on in. So how about that? So wherever you want to enter this notion of reclaiming voice, speaking tenderness.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? What could it mean to others as they hear you meditate on it a little bit?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to be in your lives long enough to know that when you ask me to wade in the water, there are no weights or boots or handcuffs, and we're just going to be free.
Yes.
Conversate.
That's right.
To keep building off of each other. So I'll just start splashing around a little bit and just say, it's so wonderful to join space that's being created for us to talk about what it means to be fully alive and human in a world that has basically emphasized being savage and has actually commoditized human beings. So when you talk about voice, you are really talking about one of the distinctive characteristics of human beings, and 99% of all life forms are that have ever been on the planet Earth are no longer around. 99%. And only 1% made it. Cockroach, beetle, giraffe, roaches, and also these human beings.
Right.
And these other life forms of this 1% don't have that ability to be intelligent, use language, and solve problems in their world using their thought and their voice. So one of it, I think about that, wow, you just reminded me how cultures have creation stories, but when you say reclaiming your voice, you're saying every moment of every day is an opportunity to co-create and to have a creation story of reclaiming your voice. And I think what my brother Peter is saying is that there's something about the signaling of human beings with each other, that we're a kind of jumpy species. We kind of anticipate before something happens as to what's going to happen. And sometimes that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it can create all sorts of drama and all sorts of things. So when I think about voice, I think about signaling, one, to yourself, that you're alive and intelligent and bringing values to the world, and two, signaling to other human beings. So Peter said, let's do it politicized. I love it, because so many people only think of electoral politics. They don't think of politics as being the art of actually looking at how we distribute and leverage resources. And if we are resources to each other, why wouldn't we speak politicized tenderness? Meaning that I think of tender as, you don't want to just bite on a rock, hard piece of something. You want it to be able to digest what was brought to you. So therefore, if it's spoken in tenderness, I have a chance to chew it up. Tenderness means soft. It connotes softness to me. In the politicized form, it connotes a purposeful softness that is signaling to you, we are one always. So even in disagreement, even in errors, as Nikki Giovanni said, even my errors are correct. When we are tender with each other, and there should be nothing that is so important that we put ourselves aside from each other and say that we're now not going to speak love and tenderness with each other. And that is just built into what Peter just said, which is, we don't have to agree, but I will never make you wrong. That is the tonality that comes with tenderness. And it turns out that most of what people remember about an experience is tonality. They don't remember the poet's exact words. They don't remember the stories, all the details, but they remember the experience.
See, they're trying to hire you right now.
They're trying to call you now. They're trying to call you on it. Like, we need you. We need you.
Yeah. They heard you talking. They said, what's the hourly rate?
You got me in the 2 feet of water. Don't get me. Let's keep swimming. Let's keep swimming, because I'm saying, wow, you mean to tell me that no matter what life puts in front of us, we don't have to fight over the corner of a napkin and kill each other. We can actually proceed from we are one always. And therefore I speak to you in love, sharing with you my partial truth. And nobody else knows what's really going on either. So why don't we just join each other, and then maybe the puzzle starts coming together. Yeah. So I love it, because particularly for Black people, we've been conditioned to hate ourselves. And therefore to be very jumpy when we're around each other. There's going to be competition. There's going to be step on my neck. This person's going to be abusive. It's a lot of evidence we have that we're not going to be loving and operationalize love and the power of love. And I just think, wow, you just came up with something in so many ways is revolutionary, because you're saying, let's signal that we're one and that we love each other, and let's do it with tender voice.
You want to jump in, Ade?
I want to let it sink in. Go ahead, Dad. I see you ready.
I want to add to tell you why I began meditating in particular on this theme, baby talk speaking tenderness. So my mother used to say, she would have said, she said, it isn't what you say, it's how you say it.
Tonality. Yes.
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 And she used to say that to us all the time. And I remember taking her to a high school sports banquet as my date. And I was the MC. And I got to roasting my coach, my basketball coach. And Mom got more angry as my rant, my sort of indiscriminate rant. I was funny as a mug now, because I was just sipping Richard Pryor milkshakes in those days. But boy, when we left that place, she was steaming. And she said, you were so wrong. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? No, you took advantage of it. You had the microphone. He didn't have the mic. And you went overboard. You went overboard. And I tried to defend myself. I said, it was funny. Everybody was laughing. Yeah, when he wasn't laughing and I wasn't laughing. So yes, man, that's what's the sort of deep home training roots, as you might say, because you got that South Carolina.
Yeah. Come on, brother. Come on.
Those are some of the roots of my hunger for this exploration. So I'm actually, really just working hard to write this stuff down. How do we talk about it? But that's where it came from for me.
And it's funny because that has trickled into how you've raised me, because I'm thinking of remembering all the times that you make sure they will watch what you say, watch your tone, and making sure, and not just in a funny way, but in reality, growing up as a kid, watch your tone of voice, not just to you as the father, but to other people, to your friends, to your teachers who you interact with, remembering that what you say to people and how you speak it to them is the most important thing. So it's interesting for me to hear that story and recognize how it has trickled down into how you've impacted me and how I also interact with other people. And particularly when I'm working with the clients, or even at school, or the kids that I used to work with, the students, I'm always conscious of making sure that my attitude, my delivery of things, even if I'm completely annoyed, I am aware that how can I say this to make sure that what I need done gets done, but it comes across in a way that is inviting, in a way that is still powerful for me, because especially in classroom settings, you want to make sure that you have a sense of power in classrooms, especially with at-risk youth and teenagers. You can't have the feeling of oh, they're going to get me, or the feeling of I'm weak in this room. But you can't go in very domineering either, because the kids will know that you're not even respecting their space. So it really is about the power of the voice, the power of the tone, but then also creating that space of tenderness, gentleness, and even empathy. What does someone need when you're conversating or conversing with them? Yeah. So okay, Dad, I see you.
I love it. And let's stay with it and bang this note again of empathy, and say hats off to Mom, because even though there are a lot of things about any culture that aren't necessarily healthy, there are lots of things about our culture that are also healthy. And one of the things that Mom was doing in that statement is so African, and it's so true to indigenous cultures around the world. And it's run up and clashed against Arab, Persian, and Europeans who have a different view of this situation about empathy. But your mother was really saying, I watch myself and I watch the coach. And the real litmus test is whether you had a receptivity of what you were offering, so that everybody could be fed. So we don't have a coach here to interview to, counter Mom, because maybe he's just a deadpan guy, he's not just falling all over the chair. But she does bring up a point I think we can harvest anyway, which is she was so tuned in to relationships matter.
Yeah.
And the experience of the person matters more than you talking, more than you telling, And I
That's right.
think it ties into what Ade said about having power, that there is a model of power that comes out of domination. And therefore, I get the right to demonstrate my power by directing you and telling you, etc. And I think your mother was arguing for, let's make this reciprocal, and where you have the power to might, anything to excess can be a problem. So I think you went overboard, because I don't know if he experienced you with great happiness and joy. So I want a black man of happiness.
She wanted it early
Even
for him.
early version before you could even write it. And again, we'd have to be anthropologists and interview the coach, because he might have been thrilled.
Right.
But she was raising a point that I think gets lost, that we have to look and see that the cultures that really understood empathy have been under attack for 2,000 years and often slaughtered. And you're seeing remnants of those people that are steered to reservations or, marginalized in all sorts of ways. And they did empathy like, Earl of Pearl could cross over dribble. So it was just unnatural. Whereas now I got to underscore that Ade's bringing it back up, because it's not natural and part of the everyday flow like it needs to be. And I love the energy that Adenike is bringing, because she's saying, there's a power when I don't come in dominant mode.
Right.
There's a power that comes from me inviting people to connect with me, and for me being open to the connection, which is, described as empathy. In that sense of it, it becomes a derivative of love energy. It's a child of love, just like respect and just like tenderness. So I think we're bringing forward a model of power that is not power over, but power with, that your mother was also asking you to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Power with people. And that my mother used the same phrase, all the time. She would chastise me in her own way, the same way your mom stepped to you, because Black mothers took it seriously about raising their kids. So they were raising us to watch out for these excesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And knowing where you are, without her saying it, she was saying, bro, this is not the Howard Theater or the Apollo. Now, if you was getting paid, you was getting paid to make everybody laugh, whether and go after the hecklers, or if it was a paid roast, then go for it. But this is a high school banquet, bruh. You're not being paid. You're here to represent home training, is what she was saying.
Yeah.
And you don't bring me in here and embarrass me right in my face.
That's so great, Peter. I want to underscore it though, for the people that's going to listen to this conversation. We are people of context and culture and connection. We are people of context, culture, and connection. And that's what she's saying. Yeah. Now, dominant people like to act as if they are rugged individuals and everything was based on merit, and we can talk about everything outside of context. And we've got one universal culture. It started in Greece, so y'all got to swallow it. And we don't feel that connected to anything other than what we worship, which is toys and trinkets and shiny lumps. Okay? So I think you brought up something about, well, what's up for grabs here? When you say reclaiming your voice, you're also talking about, at some point, I had a voice. In some spaces, I had a voice. And something is happening in those spaces that distorted my voice or muted my voice or hid it away. And so I love, Peter, you bringing us back to context matters. Context matters. And I just see so many people want to say, hey, I'm ignorant. I don't know anything about history. Forget context. You making excuses when you start bringing out context.
Right.
But everything has its relationship. And I think we've seen dominant cultures destroy nature and plunder other people's domains because they don't respect context. They don't respect culture. They don't respect connections to the human family.
Mm.
And we have a chance to do it differently. That's what you're really saying.
Yeah.
When you say reclaiming,
Yeah.
reclaiming, we have a chance to do it differently. I love the ing on it because, you know, you don't say, oh, clean up like you took a bath in 83 back in Toledo in a shower. You just did it one time. You're saying,
Right.
every day I'm creating, every
Right.
day I'm reclaiming, every day I'm looking for opportunity to signal my love
Yeah.
and to receive it. That's the other thing about your mom saying. She said, look at what the coach is receiving.
Mm.
So I think about voice the same way. If I really speak my truth authentically, then I have hopes that someone else is going to reciprocate and be in empathy with me. And then how do we become human? Ubuntu. I am because we are.
Mm.
And because we are, I get fed reciprocally to the extent that I'm willing to risk reclaiming my voice. So I would even go so far as to say, thank you, Ade, for inviting those students. Thank you for raising your voice in a loving, empathetic way. And I would say it's probably, for you to do anything else, you would probably be trying to betray and imitate the oppressor's model, or you would be holding back your voice, which I want to put in the room as, well, once we wake up to the power of love in your voice, if you withhold that from me, then like our brothers who were killed by the cops, I'm saying I can't breathe. I can't breathe without your love. I cannot breathe. I need it for me to come into the fullness of what I can be. So therefore you are invited to reclaim your voice.
Yeah.
Because there's this reciprocal validation that your voice gives me and I back to you, because we're not isolated lumps of gold and silver. We're intrinsically valuable and connected
And
to all
connected.
life. Yeah,
Yeah. And connected. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah. So I love it. I love it. We got to feed each other. So your
Yeah.
mom didn't go that far, but then you took the baton, Peter. So you taking it. You know she didn't. She can only run the race so long.
Oh, that's true. And unfortunately, she died. I'm older than her now than she was when she passed.
That's
She died at
unfortunate.
57. It's just
Too
breathtaking to even say it now.
That's Lorraine Hansberry's age.
Oh, she was younger than 57, I think.
Yeah, she's even younger, right?
Yeah.
Too
You know,
young.
while we're here, and this is so great, actually, I want to tell the people, and I want to remind Ade, I don't even think I've ever told her this story. So when you and I met back in the 80s, I was in DC working for an organization, and you were consulting.
You were a volunteer in the kindergarten you were attending.
Yeah, okay. So you're funny, see, because he was making money trying to grow them up.
Yeah.
But I remember you were introduced, Thomas, and you jumped off this stage. Neither one of us doing that now, no doubt. But I was way in the back of this room. And they said, well, here's our series of our facilitators at this institute, blah, blah, blah. And this is Dr. Thomas A. Gordon. And he jumped off the thing and started talking to us. And I said to myself, I got to meet this dude because you had such an enthusiasm that I could feel it all the way in the back of the room. And so I actually want you to please share with my daughter, my beloved kid, but also with the people who come to conversating. Talk about radiating the best, or talk about how you can actually, without words, be tender, without words, actually emanate this sense of joy that we've been exploring in our CU project on my end of this table. But if you just sort of meditate on that, what signals are we giving even without words, without our like literal voice?
Yes. And then I'm gonna come back and tie back into the story so they can hear my version of that wonderful day that we met. But I brought it up earlier about we're distinct in this 1% of the life forms that made it. And one of the reasons we made it is that we, unlike other life forms, can adjust rapidly. Okay? It doesn't take a genetic adjustment to get us to adjust. It takes signals.
So
you brought up something very important, which is we're the species that actually we need to drop the phrase we learned in the street, which is, oh, there was a lack of communication. That's slang talk. But what you're talking is, let's change our lives. Let's change the world. And let's really do something spectacular with our genius. So that means understanding that you're communicating 24/7. You're always communicating. And we're so intelligent, brilliant, sensitive that people can actually pick up tonality. They don't even wait for rhetoric or words. They're actually picking up, and Black people say it at a party, I picked up the vibes. Because everything is energy and everything is moving or vibrating. And people are intelligent enough to pick up radio signals and internet signals, and they can pick up signals from human beings, which is why your mother was saying, well, in this particular context, maybe the guy and I weren't laughing, and let me tell you why. So she's still in dialogue with you. Well, it turns out we're in dialogue with people, even as simple as whether they pull their ear or whether they fix their glasses when you made a point, whether they coughed, whether they look down or up. We're noticing so many signals, and we are very impatient species. That's another word for being intelligent. We're so smart. We're anticipating and making patterns faster than any computer. Now, what we're not good at is trusting empathy, that I can actually share my voice with some of the patterns I'm making and be in dialogue with other people so that I can keep updating my patterns. What people do is sometimes make the patterns and then they don't reclaim their voice. So once you do that, you're shutting off this ability of the human being to rapidly adjust. And that's our greatest gift. And in fact, intelligence to me is not what you know. It's actually the ability to connect with other people so that you accelerate your adjustments. Because we know very little. You can put it in the size of the symbol I'm making, about the size of a thimble. But no species can beat us in terms of fast adjustments. And the way to do that is to share your voice with the partial information you know, which is why I said nobody else knows what's really going on either. So don't be hiding out, waiting to have the perfect description. And you just said, and I totally agree, even when you're not talking, we're still feeling you. We're still picking up on you. Hey, we may as well give you a title, Chief Swollen Cheeks, because you sitting there puffed up, you can't even breathe because you got stuff that you want to say. So we start calling people on some of those games we play so that we can get a more in-depth conversation. So words are later on useful, and you're a writer and a poet, and it's extremely useful that we document and we speak. Language is part of the way we remember things. You can't have real empathy without memory. So it's part of our collective memory. But let me give you a quick example of energy that's inside a word. So people not even listening to what you say, but let's say I didn't say you were stupid. 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 See what I'm doing? It's all different energy.
And at the end of the day, you still calling them stupid. I mean, that's like, no matter how you're emphasizing this, the receptors are still like, you still calling me stupid.
Right. So what the dominant culture said is, y'all ain't got brains, but we know brilliant people. They're smart enough to read energy. So it's all about energy, and it's all about signaling and receiving. So they call that transceivers, things that can transmit and receive. And you're right, Ade. People picking up as soon as you walk in the room. Now, let me close the story. I had my eye on Peter. Now, he trying to be cool because I didn't get to go to a HBCU called Bison Mecca Howard U. So he was definitely suave. I got to give it to him. He was cool. But I looked at it this way. I was fortunate enough to have a great childhood. Didn't get wrecked by too many cultural trains, and racism didn't lynch me or kill me. And I had two parents that did not believe in the mantra of that era, which is children were meant to be seen and not heard. I happen to have two parents that said, if you are big enough to sit at the chair at the table, then you got to bring something to the conversation. You're not in the high chair anymore. So by the time I was 5 or 4 and really could use language, I was expected to participate, ask questions, think, and react. And that was very unusual. Yeah. So when I saw that stage that I met Peter and I saw that audience, what I saw was a traditional model of the expert above the people. And I'm a rebel. So I wasn't into following the model of a lot of dead people that set up that format. I was more interested in engaging. Conversating is now Peter's new word. Back then, I was just calling it, well, I'm going to be old-fashioned Baptist preacher, and I'm getting off of the pulpit and joining the people.
Yeah.
And that's the energy he picked up. I picked up suave, and I noticed that, half the group might have been asleep, but he wasn't. And I think he said some things later on. And he had a platform at the time that I thought was very powerful platform. It had something to do with a newsletter that had the word light in it.
Yeah. And, bright ideas.
Bright ideas. Right. Yeah. Right. So I actually, without him saying a word, picked up his energy. Now, the energy I picked up, he later reinforced for me in words and deeds. But I actually picked up the energy from him that this guy was substantial. He wasn't lightweight, suave. He was substantial, meaning he had integrity, he had thought, he had studied and worked. So this is all vibes. I didn't really know him. And so I was pleasantly confirmed that my hunch was right about who is in it. Now, I would say there that traditionally we'd have said the ancestors helped him relay some of his mother's philosophy to you, Ade, because it's cross-generational transmission. And I would say the ancestors tilted the scales because neither one of us knew each other, but we were looking and open for signals as where's my tribe?
Yeah.
My family. We're in a world now, 7 billion people, and most of them are dazed and confused, or they're pretending and hiding. So we both recognized each other as family members that day. And everything since there is details.
Absolutely.
The decision was made that day that the vibes are on. We picking them up, and it's like Peter and I said, "Hey, we are together, inspirational sky, and everything else is just weather." That's how we've been rolling for now. What, 3 decades?
Since that was 80 something, easily early mid 80s.
Yeah.
But while I want to actually ask you something, Ade. I wonder, what do you feel right now? I mean, you're literally witnessing 2 people. So, Dr. Gordon is an uncle to you now, an advisor. But I'm saying, how does it feel? I don't know how many of my father's friends, I mean, I have some experiences, but I don't know how many, what does it feel to see one of your parents is like teachers and close friends and like associate / everything? I mean, I'm just curious about what you're witnessing and experiencing now.
For me, it's just it's honorable. It's also just pleasurable, just simply being kind of like the fly on the wall to absorb information and knowledge, but not feeling like I can't participate in the conversation, but also knowing that I'm enjoying listening to both of your perspectives on this topic of reclaiming voice, speaking tenderness, and then also recognizing, for me, it's a genetic thing because I do see a lot of what I've learned from you, how it comes out. And then I also see how even though you two aren't biologically related, your friendship has allowed for Dad, you to have osmosis of just learning from Dr. Gordon. And I also see
And
how
vice
that is
versa.
also right, and
Right.
vice versa, but also
Right.
how it's connecting even in me, right? So what you've learned from Dr. Gordon, you've shared with me before I even had the pleasure of meeting you and talking to you and being mentored by you. So the best answer I have is that I'm just honored always to be a part of the conversation, not just a witness of, but to be included, to be a participant. You both have taught me the power of my own voice, of being
Yep.
able to speak up, even if it's something that I may have written down on my own, but I always knew that it was something that I needed to do for my own abuse. Just like I have to be able to speak up and to say what I mean and mean what I say. But then also what I've learned from you, Dr. Gordon, as I've transitioned through career and even as I'm moving towards a PhD, like knowing what I want and being able to say what I want and feel confident and powerful in that is a part of both of you speaking tenderly to me, allowing me to still go at my own pace, but recognizing that, hey, Adenike, this is what I would encourage you to do, or it's always packaged in that empathy that you referred to. It's always packaged in that love. Like, we got you. And so as a woman, it feels amazing to witness two men, two Black men speaking tenderly to one another, speaking tenderly to me, because that was also a question I was going to throw out there, but I think you both kind of started answering it. But really recognizing as a culture this uber masculinity that comes out, particularly from Black men, and vulnerability, and how you gotta be a man's man, but also recognizing that there's still masculinity in being vulnerable. And that's something that I've had the pleasure of witnessing through you, Dad, and even through you, Dr. Gordon, like really being able to just open up. And that's just something that I'm always, number one, I'm fascinated because unfortunately I don't see it a lot in my generation. But then now there's a movement, and I put that in quotes on purpose because there's a new movement of, protect Black men's mental health and all of this. And I always am questioning, like, why is it a protection of something and it's not just let's make it not normal, because I don't really like the word normal, but I think I want to make sure that it's emphasized, like, this is just human functioning and developing. I think we all need to be practicing vulnerability and empathy, men and women, and we need to break up this toxic masculinity and this toxic patriarchy in the world that we live in. And so you two are just a living, breathing example of that desire in my mind of like what that can look like, particularly as Black men. So I just
One thing,
always
one thing,
like it.
yeah, one thing I want you to hear also, you just said it out loud, and I want to just co-sign it, that your commitment to reclaiming your voice shows up in such a powerful way that if we had Stevie Wonder on the podcast, he could say, I see it. You know,
Oh man.
you
Yeah, thank
really,
you.
you really have made a commitment. And I think what you're teaching us, Ade, is that you don't make serious life preserving and life amplifying commitment sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't straddle that fence and also wade in the water. You don't
Right.
put your little toe in the 2 feet and say, yeah, I want to flip off the board. There's a point where you got to say, if they haven't killed me by now, look out. Because
Yeah.
I deserve to live, I want to live, and I will live. And I'm telling you,
Absolutely.
you really come across, and as Peter said earlier, it's not even in necessarily by the time we hear your voice in language. Your voice is actually speaking. And I was saying this to some of my grandkids the other day. I said, you know what? You speak to me by the way you come in a room as to whether your shoulders are bent over and you're looking at the floor, as opposed to you standing tall like an African dancer or a drummer. And you're really ready to say, I'm ready for the vibration of the day. So Ade, you are a light around the power of loving yourself enough to lead your life, because we live in a savage society. The abuse you're talking about could be unpacked on multiple scales and levels. And every day you're looking for some people that are willing to be loving. So you got your dad, you got other people in your life. I'm saying, wow, a table can stand on 3 legs. If you know more than 3 people that you can trust to be tender with you, then let's make this table stand on 12, 25, 50, 100. But 3 is the minimum. And I think you got that 3 based on the way you carry yourself. And that's part of what Peter's saying. You're voicing even before you speak. I learned so much just in the time I've had to be with you, and so keep on going, keep on dancing, keep on voicing as you're doing in the multiple arenas, because you're painting without a paintbrush. You know, you're voicing without necessarily using words, and you know how to use words. And frankly, you bilingual. You know, you can use various kinds of languages. Now, this is something I learned from Peter that I want him to hear today, because I think the agreement that Peter and I made when we just vibed on each other was this can't be a traditional male relationship, which frankly, I agree with you. You don't set up a movement to protect male mental health. That's ridiculous. It's probably some white group that thought that up and put it into the Black community. What you want is actually for human beings that happen to be men to actually invest in each other. See, now that's a dance or a process. An investment, whether it's your money or your life, is never smooth and always going up. You know, it's zigzagging and it's having some volatility, they call it, in the marketplace. But Peter and I have never let anything come between us as a corner of a napkin we got to fight over or compete over. And most brothers won't do that. They will compete over loss of face, loss of particular edge, oh, I got you, something. It's all this competition energy that he and I just invested in each other. We never had it. And now we're going into our 4th decade. And they haven't given us a watch or a toy or a trinket or iPhone or anything that's that interesting to us. He would throw me under the bus, I would throw him under the bus. And therefore, you don't ever have to stand on the rank of chronological age or, you know, who went to what school and all that. It's not about static status.
Yes.
It never was about static status. I riffed and jumped off that stage because I felt energy and I felt like I'd be welcome. And I took the risk. I was at the Getty Museum one time and Peter was doing a reading of some of his work and it was packed and everybody was in awe and he was the man, the expert, so to speak. I saw him stop the reading when some people were squirming because there were some little infants in the audience who were being little infants. And they were being snotty adults as if to say, you have no place in a clean Getty Museum that we paid money to see, Mr. Harris. We have no room for human life. And I saw Peter do the equivalent of a back semi-flip on a dive with a degree of 10 difficulty and say, oh, hell no, not on my watch. There's nothing that will trump the value of a human life. You're talking about our future. And so I'm not having it. If I got to call 2 Dobermans to have you kicked out, we're gonna make room for life. And I looked at the courage of Miles Davis and playing with Herbie Hancock, and Herbie Hancock said, you know what? I'd make a mistake on the piano and play the wrong chords, and Miles would hear the mistake and actually change what he was going to do so that we could still riff, because it's never about making you wrong or throwing you on the bus, but it is about the courage to say, I'm going to invest in this audience and believe that what I say, which wasn't rehearsed, is not on a sheet of paper, is going to create value in the room. So let me say, Ade, it's about creating value. And your voice is one of the channels for creating value. And just turns out you have voice even when you're not speaking to create value in the world. And that means that you have to think about a vision that is big enough to hold the values that you hold.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to settle for a little chunk, energy formatted on a piece of paper called a dollar
Right.
bill. You're
Right.
too big for that. So now you're talking about values and vision and voice that are going to take you to what? Victories.
The Victor Raz.
Yeah, so come on. But
Mm-hmm.
men don't want to be vulnerable because if Peter and I in the locker room or we with them, we're going to call them on, let's be honest. You can't be vulnerable if you're not willing to be honest.
Yeah.
So now we want to move into protect your mental health. Well, they already wrapped up in protection and pretense and posturing. Some of them, and others are ready to invest. So now let's go deal with what is really going on. And I don't say protect anybody that's in an armadillo suit. I say show them the zipper.
Mm-hmm. Here's something deep too about that experience at the Getty. Well, first I had the mic, which means
That's
that
true.
I could
That's
say
true.
what I needed to say.
You say,
That's
yeah.
true.
But I was really channeling Sterling A. Brown, Howard legend, who taught
strong
Baraka
men.
and all
Strong
that.
men.
Yeah, strong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I took your brother, Ade, to a poetry reading of Mr. Brown's at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, back in the 70s. And he was a ball of fire, Katama. He was running around the room and I was chasing him. And finally, Mr. Brown stopped his reading and he said, "Young man, leave that boy alone." He says, "I've been doing this for 100 years. If I can't speak over a toddler, I don't even need to be standing up here." He ain't even have a mic.
And
He didn't even have a mic. And it was such a generous gesture. I had never seen anything like that. Because, and on one hand,
people still want kids to be silenced. They still want children to be, well, if you're in this public space, you need to sit still. I'm like, it's a child. Children don't sit still. They're not, that's not what they do. Yeah.
And as a parent at that time, especially, you wanted to have your children exposed. Now, he's not a poet. He's not interested in poetry per se, even now, all these years later. But I wanted him to be saturated in this environment where this elder, and we now know, he was just literally the cat in the English department in them days that everybody came to and everybody came through. Stokely, I think, I want to say Toni Morrison studied with him as well, or at least was there. But anyway, what you captured and what moved you is the same thing that moved me.
Yeah, earlier. Yeah.
Earlier, a full generation before. Because Katama was a baby. He was a toddler at that time.
Right.
Up on his feet, maybe 2.5 or whatever.
Right.
Now, I know we probably could go on 1,000 years doing this. So here's another term that this man taught me. Let's check in. He used to say that when I started taking classes from him or workshops, anytime I saw his name on an offering, I took it. Negotiation, or then we had some crises. We knew who to call to help us solve some stuff. So I'm gonna check in. I feel like we have hit some really resonant things about this topic. And, we've respected our audiences in the past. We keep this short and sweet, but it's feeling good, as always. But I defer to the Ade of the Pops and Ade team. How are we doing on this time, do you think? You think we got enough for one more, excavation?
Yes.
I feel like we may need to have a part 2 with our guest, because I also want to respect our listeners. This has been so deep. We have so many nuggets that we've already gifted them with that I don't want to oversaturate, because it's like you might miss what was I want them to be able to come back and listen again. So I think we should close up for today and then possibly discuss opportunities to maybe have a part 2 with Dr. Gordon and see how far we can go and how much deeper we can get. I hope that is satisfactory to my co-host and to my guests, but I definitely want to recognize and respect the space and time of our listeners.
I will yield to that if you allow me 60 seconds to underscore something.
Close it strong, Doc.
Close it out. Go.
I got to say this because it loops back to the power of tenderness. That in the last riff we just had, you really are bringing out how much even normality, the tyranny of normality, is that it silences children. And therefore, it's violent. That this is violent. And what is the antidote for that? It's love and generosity and tenderness. Because one of the ways you can drive people crazy, we know this in psychology, is called the double bind. You take advantage of them, and then you send them a signal that it's not okay for you to resist, speak, ask for help, put a spotlight on the wound. So now you've bound them with the attack, and you double bind them with the silence. And I think in the last moment, you just brought up something that I want to underscore as we say farewell and pause for this segment. People have to realize that if we don't lead our lives, somebody has already set up a pathway and a journey for you to be a commodity on their menu. And it requires you to treat other people as objects, even people that are your blood kin or in your immediate domain, to be cared for. Now, so if they have killed the cultures that knew better, and we are the remnants and survivors of that Holocaust, it's a responsibility for us to reclaim our voice. It's a responsibility for us to signal in tenderness because of the violence that is being inflicted upon us daily. It is violent to have people go to bed hungry. It's violent to have people say you're meant to be seen and not heard. You know, that's violence. And I think we only think of violence as dropping bombs on a country, but you are exposing people to tyranny of normality and mediocrity. So I just appreciate so much that the revolutionary spirit of this moment that y'all have brought in, reclaiming our voice and speaking, sharing, signaling in tenderness, because that is our only hope. That is our only hope, that there'll be enough people around who aren't so impressed with shiny lumps and corners of napkins that they'll really be thinking about, who are we? And if we really think about that, we don't have to panic. We can share our voice. One of the reasons people don't share their voice is they're too busy listening to compete so they can win an argument, or they're too scared that nobody cares. So now they're in panic. So I say, hey, to be continued, with or without me. There are other people on the planet, but I want people to see what the stakes are. If we walk away from this topic, you're really saying that I surrender the game in the middle of the game, rather than look at a strategy for how do we pivot? How do we pivot in this game on purpose so that we can partner to have the greatest possible life? Ashe.
Man. This was beautiful.
That's what you call conversating right there.
And,
so
and
we
this
look
is
to
what
talk
you get with
soon.
a guest on Conversating with PopsnAde. This is how we do it. So I just want to say thank you so much for Dr. Gordon to join us today.
Dr. Thomas A. Gordon. That's right.
Dr. Thomas A. Gordon, also known as my mentor, my uncle. I appreciate you, man.
So
all right.
Back at you soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All righty.
You've been listening to Conversating with Pops and Ade. We're your hosts, Peter Harris.
And I'm Adenike Harris. Please, wherever you're listening to this podcast, subscribe, share with your friends, and give us feedback. Also, don't forget to follow us at our Instagram page at PopsnAde, PopsnAde. Facebook, we are Peter and Adenike Harris.
And you can also find us on YouTube, where you can see other videos of work that we have done, including our TED Talk entitled Healing versus Retaliation. Thanks again, and come back soon.